And I've got to look at the videos, too. He sent me 3 different videos of the object. Yeah, so I wanted to see what those look like. But it looks like it may be an interesting case.
Well, now, as it starts getting dark again, do you think you'll still see it again tonight?
Well, that would be the first thing, because I've had witnesses like that who say, well, it came back again tonight, too. And sometimes you have witnesses who, I don't want to say they're making things up, but they get so caught up in it. One of them actually said it was summoning him back outside every night to see the same object, and coincidentally, Venus was exactly where he was looking at. But sometimes, people get really into this, and again, I appreciate the reports. And sometimes you have to be very honest with them and say, I think you're seeing Venus, and point it out to them. And I try to do it in a very nice way. But some people they really get wrapped up into it. And I mean that they're not looking at it optimistically, that they may be seeing something else. Like I had a case in Canada where the individual said, I'm seeing this flashing light at night. And he sent me this video. Well, what I did, Henry, is I pulled up a flight chart. And the flight chart of his region actually shows me towers, cell phone towers in the area. And he was looking exactly at a cell phone tower. And that's what he sent me a picture of. And this guy, he went completely off on me because he says it was not a cell phone tower. Yet he sends me like a 3 or 5 minute video of this flashing light that's flashing like once every second. And when you do the math behind it, what it is, I put myself exactly in his position. You look at the angle above the horizon the light is, and then when you go back and you take the distance from his point to the cell phone tower, and you add in the height of the cell phone tower to it and do some trig, that's exactly what he was looking at. And the other thing that goes along with that is, if it wasn't the cell phone tower, where was the cell phone tower at in this photo then? Because it also had to be visible if there's 2 separate objects. But sometimes you run into that, not a whole lot, but on occasion you do.
Now, you were saying that they were sending up and letting out satellites from a rocket.
Right.
How often are they doing this, and what area has he done it already, or what areas will he be doing it in?
Well, they're launching 60 at a time every month. They've done this now, like the last 5 months in a row now, they've launched like 60 at a time. So they've got about 300 to 360 satellites up there right now. And their path varies some. They're relatively in the same path, but as they're up there longer, what they do is they go out to a higher orbit, and they space themselves out more than what they are when they're first deployed. So the path, you can't say they're exactly in the same position coming across the sky every night. One of the websites you can find it at, there's a website called Heavens Above. And Heavens Above, actually, if you go to it, you can tell the website basically where you're located at. And there's an option to see visible satellites on that given night. So I could say, like tonight, what satellites are visible. And it will tell me what series of satellites of Starlink that's been deployed and they're visible on tonight. And the thing I like is they added a little sequence into it with the Starlink satellites that it shows you like different deployments, like deployment 6, deployment 5, deployment 4. You can select the different ones. And the higher numbers should be the more recent deployments, which would be lower and more visible. I know that's one of the things I want to watch watch for one of these nights when I get a chance. I was out one night, but it was a little bit too overcast to see them. But tonight, maybe as we're doing the show, I'll be able to look out and see some of them. They're going to be coming across the sky. I think it was from like the west area, roughly. And they may be going up to about 71 degrees above the horizon.
Now,
So I'd have to pull
do
it.
they have blinking lights on them?
No, these are just solid lights.
Oh,
And
they're solid light.
the best way to describe it is it looks almost like a railroad train going across the sky.
Wow.
A series of lights, one right after the other one.
Wow, and they're all lit up. Well, that ought
Yeah,
to be
Well, I guess
interesting.
they're using electricity because they have their own conductor then.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got actually arrays on them, solar cells, to power these things.
Okay, well, that fell on its face. Okay, no.
No, I understand what Jeff was saying.
Oh.
Conductor.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Henry got it. All right, cool.
I'm a little bit slow tonight. Bear with me.
You said it looked like a train, and I made a conductor reference. And
Yeah. Well, I remember I was getting a report last night. It's not as bad as one. I got one at 3:00 one morning. Somebody called me up. And the worst part was that they called a friend of mine first, and he says, "Why don't you call Tom?"
Oh, nice.
So the guy calls me up at 3 a.m.
Ah.
And when this is another one too, Jeffrey, that I mean, I appreciate the reports coming in. And the guy says, well, I want you to know I'm an amateur pilot, and I see this object has been visible for like over an hour in one area of the sky. So as he's talking, I pull up my star chart. And exactly where he's looking at is an extremely bright star. And I says, is it visible there right now? He goes, yeah. I said, how many degrees above the horizon? And he gives me that. What direction? He gives me that. And that's the only thing in the sky right there is that star. And I said, I think you're looking at a star. He goes, wow, I'm an amateur pilot. And I hate to say it, but the first words that went through my mouth is, and I know how you're an amateur pilot right now.
Oh!
I didn't say it, but that was what went through my mind. And I'm thinking, think about what you just said. I mean, come on. And it probably didn't help. It was 3:00 in the morning either.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did you ask him how much
But
he'd been drinking?
No. There's been a couple times I've almost asked somebody that though, because I did have a guy call me up the one night, gave me a report, and he says, "Well, I walked out of a bar to smoke a cigarette, and I had to say this, Henry. I said, well, what time did you leave the bar? He goes, well, about 11 o'clock. I said, what time did you get in the bar? He goes, well, about 5:30. So I mean, I again appreciated him, give me the report because even though you take it a little bit with a grain of salt, in that same area where he did have a sighting, we did have a couple other very close sightings that were extremely good.
Well, didn't they say the, quote, UFO that Jimmy Carter saw was probably Venus?
I would almost suspect that. I hate to say it, but I didn't look it up. I could go back, and if I knew the exact date and time and where he was at, I could pull up just to double check it. But it's very possible. It is possible.
Barbara, I know you got questions.
Oh, I got a ton of them actually, because we were talking about the onslaught of UFO shows that are coming on, and actually there's sort of a crossover now. I was watching one of the paranormal shows this last week, and one of the people that they thought were being haunted by shadow figures, etc., the psychic on board was saying, no, actually they were aliens.
Oh?
At the foot of the bed.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that one, but I have had witnesses report that. There was a case Barbara, I did, I'm trying to think how many years ago, about 8 years ago now. And it wasn't the United States, it was actually Canada, where a witness said that he saw basically like a shadow being in the corner of his room. He said, I'm laying in bed. He says, I look up, and in the corner of the room, I see a shadow figure appearing. Well, he even went back and he drew up a regular hand sketch of his bedroom, showing the position of the bed, showing the positions of the windows and everything else. And he says, and I saw this being standing at the end of my bed. Well, to me, it's one thing when somebody tells you a story, but when they start creating all these drawings and everything going along with it, it's almost like something is, really setting this person off. And they're really intent about, what happened. So I reach out, I contact him. We have initial contact, I get initial story from him. And then everything goes completely dead. He won't respond. He won't do anything. Well, I took and started Googling around, and I found that his story was picked up by local newspapers in his region. Because what different ones do, like MUFON, there's a website called UFO Stalker that puts little blurbs of the reports to come in, not all the details, like the name and so forth on there, but what they do normally give is the location it happened at, the date, the time, and some very brief descriptions of the event.
Almost like the UFO version of the old police blotter in the newspapers.
Exactly. And it came out, and when it hit the news, I can just picture him like, oh man, this guy probably saw it hit the newspapers, and he's like, I want to remain anonymous. I don't want information out. So he just broke off contact. Well, me, I'm kind of persistent. I'm like, man, why is this guy not contacting me? So I start using different resources. This is when you start going into things like social media. And you put the person's name in like Facebook. And another thing I did on a Jeffrey is I went to LinkedIn. And I put their name in LinkedIn. And I found this person's name. Not saying it's the exact same person, but a person by this name in this smaller town that had a very high profile position in that town.
Yeah. Can't let that reputation go down.
In education. Yeah. And I'm like, this would not go over well with his position, most likely. Yeah. So he broke off all contact and refused to answer me. But when, we had this discussions, I'm like, this guy really sounds like he, had some encounter. I have no idea what it is, but this is inside the house. And like you say, Barbara, it's that crossover. When does it become an alien and when is it paranormal on the inside, or is it all one and the same? And this is one of those that, I really wanted to dig into it deeper. But unfortunately, the contact was gone. And then what didn't help was you get sometimes copycat people. I had two other people from the same region within about 40 to 50 miles send me reports that had photographs of aliens. One was an alien in their room, which was interesting because when I went back and enhanced the digital photographs they sent to me, it really looked like a Halloween costume you could find on eBay or Amazon. Yeah, it was basically a Halloween costume. I'm beyond a shadow of a doubt that's what it was. And when I brought that up to the person, then next thing you know, they this type of stuttering and thing, and then that was it. They were out. They knew they'd been busted. And there was a second one who had used a phone app to put an image of a gray alien in a photograph.